I want you to just close your eyes for a second and imagine the sounds of a modern professional basketball game.
Oh, that is a sensory overload.
Right. You've got the deafening roar of like 20,000 fans in an arena.
The squeak of the rubber sneakers on the hardwood.
Exactly. And that heavy rhythmic thud of the ball being dribbled at absolute lightning speed, plus the blaring shot clock buzzer.
It's intense. It's an incredible environment.
It really is. But for today's deep dive, we actually want to take you somewhere completely different.
Yeah, a much quieter place.
Yeah, we are going to strip all of that modern noise away. We're silencing the crowd, and we're dropping you into this quiet, drafty college gymnasium in Massachusetts.
Because today, we are tracing the very first heartbeat of a global phenomenon.
Which is just a fascinating journey. We have an incredible stack of sources to go through today that perfectly illustrates this massive leap.
The contrast is honestly staggering.
It is. So on one side, we have this massive, data-rich catalog from USA Basketball. And this document, it details their schedules, their scores, and this honestly dizzying organizational structure for the year 2026.
It's a sprawling bureaucracy, a multi-billion-dollar machine.
Exactly. And then on the other side, we have a remarkably humble historical document.
Basically a physical education flyer.
Yeah, pretty much. We are looking at Dr. James Naismith's original 13 Rules of Basketball. These were published on January 15th, 1892 in the Springfield College School newspaper, which was called The Triangle.
It's amazing to think that a simple activity, engineered just to keep college students from getting restless during the winter, turned into what we see in 2026.
Right, and our mission for this deep dive is to map that exact evolution. We want to explore how a simple, almost chaotic set of physical constraints intended for a single college gym birthed this sprawling, multi-format global ecosystem.
It's a huge transformation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start with the absolute basics, and I mean the literal mechanics of the original game.
Which, by the way, was spelled as two separate words back then.
Yes. Basketball. 2 words.
Yeah, when you read Naismith's first 4 rules, you realize instantly that the fundamental movement of the game we know today simply did not exist.
Right. Rules 1 and 2 say the ball can be thrown or batted in any direction.
With one or both hands, but never with a fist.
But then you hit Rule 3, and to me, this is the record scratch moment. A player cannot run with the ball.
Literally cannot run.
They must throw it from the exact spot on which they catch it. I mean, Naismith makes a tiny allowance for a guy catching it while at a full sprint to try and stop.
But basically, the moment that ball is in your hands, your feet are glued to the floor.
Which is wild. Dribbling is not a concept yet.
No, not at all. And that fundamentally changes the geometry of how a team attacks.
How so?
Well, the offense is entirely reliant on passing angles, and spatial awareness rather than individual athletic drives to the hoop.
Oh, that makes sense. And Rule 4 really doubles down on this restriction. It says the ball has to be held in or between the hands.
Right. You are strictly forbidden from using your arms or your body to hold it.
When I was reading this, the only analogy I could think of was a modern game of ultimate frisbee. Or maybe that game of keep away you play in a swimming pool.
Yeah, catch, stop, pivot, and pass. That's a great analogy.
Yet I have to push back here. Because if you literally have to start moving the moment you catch a pass, how fast-paced or dynamic could this game have actually been in 1892?
Well, looking at these constraints, it seems Naismith was actively engineering a game of finesse over force.
What do you mean by that?
Think about it. By removing the ability to cradle the ball against the body, like the way a running back holds a football, he is stripping away the primal urge to just tuck the ball and plow through a defender.
Oh, wow. Yeah, if you can't hug the ball to your chest, you physically cannot lower your shoulder and initiate a tackle without losing the ball.
Exactly. Naismith knew the athletes he was dealing with were accustomed to the brutal, grinding contact of early gridiron football and rugby.
Right. They were rough guys.
Yeah, so he needed a way to keep them active indoors without tearing the gymnasium and each other apart. Rule 4 forces a purely hand-eye coordinated game.
That makes perfect sense. But that creates a massive problem for the offense, right?
It really does.
If offensive movement is completely dependent on passing and the person holding the ball is completely stationary, the defense is going to do everything in its power to disrupt that pass.
They're going to absolutely swarm the guy with the ball.
And without strict regulations, that swarm turns into a wrestling match almost immediately.
Which is exactly why the rules evolved the way they did. That natural tension leads directly into Naismith's incredibly strict, almost draconian rules on physical contact.
Because he had to create a deterrent massive enough to keep the defense at bay.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the way this original game policed physicality is just wild by today's standards.
Oh, but brutal.
Let's look at rules 5, 6, and 7. Rule 5 strictly bans shouldering, holding, pushing, tripping, or striking an opponent in any way.
Standard stuff so far.
Right, if you infringe on this, it's a foul. But the penalties are where Naismith really brings the hammer down. If you commit a second foul, you are disqualified until the next goal is made.
The punishment really does not fit the crime by modern standards. You are sent to the bench, and your team just plays a man down.
It's like a hockey penalty box, but there's no time limit. And if the umpire decides you had an evident intent to injure,
This part is crazy.
you are disqualified for the entire game, and your team is not allowed to substitute you.
You are just permanently shorthanded.
Plus, Rule 6 clarifies that striking the ball with your fist is an automatic foul. But then we get to Rule 7, and this absolutely blew my mind.
The 3-foul rule.
Yes. If either side makes 3 consecutive fouls, meaning the opponents haven't committed a foul in the meantime to break the streak, it counts as an automatic goal for the opposition.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology Naismith is deploying.
Psychology.
Yeah, he isn't just creating a penalty, he is utilizing group punishment to enforce a clean game.
Oh, I see.
He recognized the social dynamics of a gymnasium full of hyper-competitive young men.
I was actually thinking about that. Giving the opponent a free point on the scoreboard without even taking a shot seems extreme.
Right. Today, you shoot free throws.
Exactly. But in 1892, the referee just points at the scoreboard and says, free point for them. It completely shifts the responsibility.
It really does. By implementing Rule 7, Naismith is essentially forcing the teams to police their own teammates' aggression.
Because you don't want to give away free points.
Exactly. If you have a hot-headed player on your team who just shoves someone for the second time, you are going to grab him by the collar and tell him to calm down.
Because if he gets a third foul, he's not just hurting himself, he is handing the other team a goal.
Naismith basically outsourced the refereeing to the peer pressure of the players themselves.
That is so smart. It completely changes the team dynamic. You aren't just managing the ball, you're actively managing the temperaments of the guy standing next to you.
Your biggest liability isn't a bad shooter, it's a teammate with a bad temper.
Which perfectly sets up the weirdest part of these original rules, the division of authority.
Oh yeah, the officiating structure in 1892 was deeply specific.
And very different from the streamlined referee crews we see today. Rules 10 and 11 lay this out. In Naismith's gym, there were 2 distinct officials.
The umpire and the referee.
Right. And they had entirely separate jurisdictions. Rule 10 says the umpire is the, quote, judge of the men.
His entire job is watching the players.
Tracking the fouls, notifying the referee when 3 consecutive fouls happen, and disqualifying guys who are playing too rough.
Meanwhile, Rule 11 states that the referee is the judge of the ball.
The referee decides when the ball is in play, when it's out of bounds, who gets possession, keeping the time, and officially counting the goals.
There's a very strict split in duties.
It is, and I have to ask, did Naismith separate these roles because he anticipated so much cheating and brawling? Like, did he think one person physically couldn't watch the ball and the players at the same time?
That is exactly the anxiety of the era shining through. He was trying to force a game of finesse onto an environment primed for brute force.
So he needed a dedicated bouncer.
Pretty much. He mandated a strict separation between behavioral policing, which was the umpire's domain, and game mechanics, which belonged to the referee.
One official focuses entirely on human behavior, the other tracks the object.
Exactly.
It's like having a parole officer and an accountant officiating the same game.
That's a great way to put it. And while the umpire was busy acting as a bouncer, the referee had to manage some truly quirky mechanics regarding scoring and timekeeping.
The logistics are remarkably charming compared to the precision we expect today.
Let's look at Rule 8.
Okay, Rule 8. A goal counts when the ball is thrown or batted into the basket and stays there.
Remember, these were actual peach baskets, with the bottom still in them.
Right, someone had to climb up and get the ball out. But here's the kicker. If the ball rests on the edge of the basket and a defender bumps or moves the basket, it counts as a goal.
It's the ultimate anti-goaltending rule.
It's so funny to picture.
Well, it was designed for an era where the hoop was literally nailed to a balcony that spectators could bump into.
It's true. But honestly, Nothing compares to Rule 9.
Oh, Rule 9 is special.
When the ball goes out of bounds, it is thrown back into the field of play by the first person touching it. I was laughing reading this.
It is literally schoolyard rules.
Whoever sprints to the sideline and grabs the loose ball first gets possession. That's insane.
It completely ignores who actually knocked the ball out of bounds. It just rewards the hustle of whoever chases it down.
Imagine standing on that court. A bad pass sails into the crowd, and suddenly, opposing players are sprinting into the spectators to be the first one to slap their hand on a loose ball.
And once you touch it, you only have 5 seconds to throw it in, or it goes to the opponent.
Pure chaos. The structure of the game itself was so casual, too. Rule 12 sets the time at 2 15-minute halves with a 5-minute rest.
Which isn't too far off from today.
But Rule 13 dictates how a tie is handled. The team with the most goals wins. But in case of a draw, the game may by agreement of the captains be continued until another goal is made.
The informality there is striking. Overtime wasn't a mandated structural absolute.
It was a gentleman's agreement.
Exactly. The captains had to physically convene and agree to a sudden death finish. First to score wins.
Hey, you guys want to keep going? Next point wins? Sure, let's do it. It's so human, you know.
Very amateur in the truest sense of the word.
But when you look at that 1892 game, where overtime is just a casual handshake and out of bounds is a foot race into the bleachers, you realize that kind of honor system can only scale so far.
Absolutely. As the game grew, it demanded institutional guardrails.
And that brings us to the staggering bureaucracy of the second half of our source material.
Oh.
We're going to fast forward 134 years to 2026.
The leap from a single gymnasium with a peach basket to the reality of 2026 USA basketball is almost difficult to comprehend.
It's a completely different universe. When you scroll through the 2026 USA basketball catalog, you aren't just seeing a sports schedule, you're looking at a multinational corporation.
The sheer variety of events is staggering.
Right. We aren't just talking about men playing 5-on-5 anymore. We have men's and women's 5x5, men's and women's 3x3. We've got World Cup qualifiers, AmeriCups, the Nike Hoop Summit.
Don't forget the youth brackets.
Oh, right, U16 and U17 brackets playing on a global stage.
The global footprint requires an infrastructure that Naismith could never have imagined.
Not in a million years.
Compare the reality of an 1892 student playing his dorm mates to a 2026 teenager who has to navigate international visas, compliance modules, and corporate media obligations just to step onto the court.
It's a job, and the source gives us a window into the scores from the spring and summer of 2026, and you see the traditional American dominance in the traditional 5x5 format.
Some massive blowouts.
Huge. In the men's World Cup qualifying window in March, the USA blew out Mexico 123-88.
That's a big margin.
And it gets crazier. In the E-regional qualifiers, they absolutely annihilated the Dominican Republic 96-21.
Wow.
The women's team was doing the exact same thing, crushing Senegal 110-46 and dismantling Italy 93-59.
But the data also reveals some fascinating vulnerabilities.
Yes, particularly when you change the format of the game. This stood out to me so clearly. In the 3x3 format, the dominance fractures.
It really does.
In March of 2026, at the men's 3x3 Champions Cup, the USA actually lost to the Netherlands 15-20.
And the USA women's 3x3 team dropped a game to Azerbaijan 20-22.
When I saw those numbers, I had to ask myself why a powerhouse like the USA suddenly looks mortal when you just remove 2 players from the court.
And it all comes down to the mechanics of the format. Stripping the game down to 3-on-3 on a half court removes the USA's most overwhelming advantage.
Which is their incredibly deep bench, right?
Exactly. In a 5x5 game, the USA can rotate in wave after wave of elite world-class athletes, eventually exhausting their opponents.
But in 3x3, the game is shorter, faster, and highly variant.
It's a sprint, not a marathon.
A smaller nation like the Netherlands or Azerbaijan doesn't need to produce 12 world-class players to compete.
They just need to find 3 or 4 guys who play together year-round, build highly specialized chemistry, and catch a hot shooting streak in a 10-minute game.
It completely increases the variance. It allows smaller nations to punch way above their weight class, shifting the competitive balance of the globe.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the evolution isn't just happening on the scoreboard. It is happening in the institutionalization of play.
The bureaucracy side of things.
Exactly. The 2026 source material lists comprehensive bureaucratic systems that are required to keep this global machine running.
What kind of systems?
Well, we are looking at official protocols for safe sport, massive databases of disciplinary records, E-learning platforms for coaches.
Wow, even e-learning.
Oh yeah, dedicated coach academies and heavily regulated youth guidelines.
So you really can't just have a gentleman's agreement anymore. If a player commits a foul in an international tournament, it goes into a database.
The referees aren't just breaking up scuffles in it. Dozens of languages and cultures.
It has evolved from a gym class activity designed to burn off winter energy into a highly regulated international diplomatic exercise.
Think about it. The USA isn't just playing local colleges. They are navigating geopolitical borders, playing against nations like Senegal, Madagascar, Latvia, and the Ivory Coast in U17 World Cup.
The sport has basically become a shared global language.
It really has.
But it's a language with a very strict grammar now. You've got media rights, financial governance, corporate sponsorships like the Nike Hoop Summit. It is a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem.
And yet you can still trace it all back to that one page in the Triangle newspaper.
It is the ultimate testament to the power of a strong foundation, which brings us to the end of our journey today.
It's been quite a ride.
We've taken you from a drafty Massachusetts gym in 1892, where you couldn't even run with the ball, where you were permanently disqualified for a second foul, and where the first person to grab a loose ball out of bounds got possession, all the way to the globally formalized, meticulously structured enterprise of 2026.
So much change, yet the core remains.
So what does this all mean? To me, it proves that a highly constrained set of simple rules can serve as the DNA for an endlessly adaptable framework. Naismith built a box so sturdy, with such fundamental mechanics, that the entire world was eventually able to play inside it.
It is a remarkable legacy. But as we look at how much the game has adapted, there's one detail in the 2026 USA basketball menu structure that really stuck out to me.
Oh, what was that?
It leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder. Right there, nestled alongside the 5x5 and 3x3 national teams, USA Basketball has an official category for esports.
Wait, really? Competitive video gaming officially sanctioned and managed under the USA Basketball umbrella?
Yes, exactly. And this raises an important question about intent versus execution.
How so?
Well, if Dr. Naismith's primary goal in 1892 was to design a competitive activity that entirely avoided the brute physical force of football, achieving that by banning running with the ball, and strictly penalizing all physical contact, how would he view this digital frontier?
That is a great question.
Would he look at a purely digital esports version of basketball, a space where there is absolutely zero physical contact, no tackling, no brawling, and where success relies 100% on pure hand-eye coordination and spatial awareness, and consider it the ultimate perfected realization of his original vision?
A completely frictionless game. No umpires needed to break up fights, no bodies hitting the floor, just pure mechanics translated through a controller.
It's a wild thought.
It really is. The next time you hear the deafening roar of an arena or the squeak of those shoes on the hardwood, just remember, it all started with a guy trying to invent a game where nobody moved. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.